We're gonna do a two-part video on how to take a dresser and turn it into a landscape scene. For as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with Miss Mustard Seed's landscape dressers. I'm not sure if I can pull it off, but I'm gonna try. In this first video, I'm gonna show you how to use Sweet Pickins milk paint to get the base of the landscape done. And in video 2, Zeb and I are going to use chalk and DIY paint to paint on the landscape. So the colors that we're using are cobalt. Then I have cobalt mixed with a little bit of Sweetie Jane. Then I've got In a Pickle and a little bit of In a Pickle mixed with Pantry Door. And finally, some flour sack. To get started, I'm using cobalt mixed with Sweetie Jane, and I'm gonna come to about here, and then I'm gonna start blending in just the straight up cobalt. We'll let that dry, and then we'll get started on the grass. So I'm simulating the sky. It gets lighter as you go up, so the taller part of my dresser is a lighter blue, and then it will go down into a darker blue the closer it gets to the grass. I've added just a splash of High Bond to all my colors. I want it to get a little bit chippy, but not so chippy that it all comes off after I've got the landscape drawn on. So I've got a few runs. Zeb pointed them out to me, but I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna take my squirt bottle and I'm gonna wet just the edge of this so that way I can blend the cobalt into this so it's not like a solid line. So if you don't use a squirt bottle, you're gonna get this really solid line. If you wet it, then it helps blend your line a little bit. And I'm not worried if it's perfect because I'm gonna come back and second coat this anyways. All right, so the next step, I've already got 2 coats blended on here, both of those colors. I'm just gonna take flour sack and dip just the end of my brush in the flour sack. And I'm gonna come through and add some highlights with white. We'll add clouds later. This is just to help the transition from light to dark, and I went ahead and squirted it, and I'm just gonna blend the colors together. The thing about milk paint is that, see, we're already starting to get chippy. If you're concerned about it all chipping off, because it very well could, especially since we're reactivating it, then use a different paint. You can do the same thing with the DIY paint if you want to. I just wanted a chippy look. All right, so I'm coming back with my In a Pickle, and I'm using a flatter edged brush to kind of come and draw some straight lines for the hills. You want to make sure that your paint is all the way dry when you're doing this because you don't want to blend your hill into your sky. Okay, so now I'm going to come back through here now that I've drawn that line. And I'm going to fill in all my grass, and then we'll come back and highlight it. So a couple things to remember when you're mixing a milk paint. Only mix up what you need because it can start to gel up in an hour to 2 hours, and then it won't really be that usable. But if you notice it start to gelling up and you catch it, you can add a little bit of water and use your immersion blender and bring it back to life, which is what I did with this paint because I mixed it up and then we left and I came back. So maybe a little chunky, but we're gonna try to save it. So this is just the Pantry Door mixed with the In a Pickle. I made like a lighter green color. And the other thing to remember with milk paint, when you reactivate it with water, you risk that it's gonna chip. And we've already had some chipping up here. I sanded it off and I put more blue, and I'm okay with it because I wanted kind of a chippy look on my dresser. If you don't want it to chip off, then make sure to use plenty of Bond, or you can do this exact same look with the DIY paint. All right, so I'm now gonna take my water and I'm gonna make sure my green is activated. And I'm just gonna add some varying tones. And this is that paint. This was completely gelled up because I made it like an hour ago. and I just added some water to it and used my immersion blender, and now I'm able to use it again. So I'm just making different shades of grass, and when Zeb comes in here tomorrow and we add the animals to it, we'll probably add some varying tones in it too. You just don't want to get too much water up here in the blue because you do not want the blue to run onto your green. And if I get too much chipping in places, that's where I'm going to put a cloud or a tree or whatever. I can hide a lot of that there. But I wanted to have kind of a chippy folk art look to it, and that's why I went ahead and used milk paint for my base. So I went ahead and went back over this with some more milk paint with a little bit of extra bond added and no more squirty water. That way it controlled some of the chipping. We're gonna go ahead and take it outside and sand it nice and smooth and get all the chips off, so that way it'll be ready for Zeb to help me put a barn, a windmill, and maybe some sheep. If you'd like to get the same look on your piece, we used Sweet Pickets milk paint, extra bond, cobalt blue, Sweetie Jane, Sweetie Jane in a pickle, and pantry door, as well as my paint pixie brushes. You can get all of that at jamirayvintage.com. A little suggestion, if you don't want it chippy or you're worried that it's just not going to work for you, you can also get the exact same look using DIY paint that we also sell on our website. Don't forget to hit the notifications button so that way you don't miss our next step in the dresser process, which is going to be to add some detail. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Jami Ray Vintage for more DIY.